Jamie Ott. I'm the Emergency Management Director for the City of Broken Arrow. We're going to kind of go over a little bit of what I do and what emergency management is. Within emergency management, there are many layers and functions within emergency management of where I work in, and there's 4 phases that the city, municipal government, county, I'll just say city because that's where we're at. These 4 phases is the different phases of a disaster or a large incident that we go through with mitigation, preparedness, response, and the recovery. Each one of our disasters or incidents usually has these phases that we work through on recovering from a disaster. And over to the left, those are the different levels of other government and other organizations that I work with to help us during and after a disaster. We have FEMA, we work with the State Emergency Management, we work with Tulsa County and Wagner County. We also work with the Muskogee Creek Nation tribe. And this is kind of an overview of some of the plans and groups that I deal with on a monthly and sometimes daily basis. On our different plans, we have our hazard mitigation plan that we look at natural disasters from the whole community and what we could anticipate what might happen in the future, tornadoes, lightning, flooding, and we put these into plans so that way we have an overall view of what potentially could happen within our city. And we have our emergency operations plan, and that plan is a guidance document to help our departments within the city and help our local government understand that each department within the city in our different organizations, we have roles and responsibilities in those disasters, and this is what we are doing during this time, and it lists it all out. We have our cybersecurity plan. Our IT department has come back and we have done 2 exercises dealing with cybersecurity attacks. In fact, I think it was 3 years or so ago, Broken Arrow was the first city in the state that we did an exercise with our host city department and our IT team on a cybersecurity attack. And we just recently done another one about a year ago, and now there's other municipalities around the state that has approached us and approached our state team, our state cybersecurity team, to try and mimic some of our exercises and what we do with our plan. And then we have the Tulsa County and the Wagner County Local Emergency Planning Committee, where we all come together and we talk about hazardous materials and things that threaten the community, and work on with our private partners in dealing with chemicals. And also Region 7, Region 4, because of Broken Arrow in Tulsa County and Wagner County, we have different regional medical response system groups that we work with. We do first responder training, we exercise our plans, we try and do at least a minimum of 3 exercises per year for the entire city. We're looking at trying to do a large tabletop exercise with our schools this year. Then we'll have we're working on our community recovery plan. That's how we interface and work within our nonprofit groups and our individual assistants as we're going into recovery, because individual assistance is really not a function of the local government. The individual assistance comes from our philanthropists. I always have a hard time saying that. Our nonprofit groups and our churches that come in and help individuals after disaster to try and recover, either with financial assistance or bringing in groups that can kind of help them clear their property or secure their homes after a disaster. And then I work every month of the year, especially in the spring as we're getting closer into our spring storm season, with 85 different organizations across the state on building the bridges and relationships that if something happens here, I can reach out to those groups that have special groups that may work within special needs, or if we have to have specialized equipment or whatever, we can call and reach out to them and we can bring it into the city. And just kind of really an overview, emergency management, we cover multiple disasters. Here's just an example of some of the latest storms that we've had done. The ice storm, we've had several tornadoes in the last few years that's come across through Broken Arrow. And this is where we reach out and we start doing damage assessment, to seeing what needs could potentially be there, to where if we need to reach out to our county and our state partners to bring in resources to help out. So on this, we're doing pre-planning. We're kind of leaning forward. We have these, what we might call a pre-notice event, to where we can prepare our staff in our emergency operations center to be prepared with storms coming. A no-notice event could be like a large chemical spill, or we have a large accident up on the highway. It's a no-notice event, and we can activate and work with our partners in working those scenes. And one of the things about severe thunderstorms and tornadoes, when they issue watches and warnings, a lot of times as the storm systems are coming through, you'll see the boundary set up of where these watches occur. And even though the Tulsa County may not be in that watch box, one of the things about some of these storms is they don't see the maps and the boundaries on where we're thinking that a watch or something may happen. So even though Tulsa County or the city of Broken Arrow may not be involved in a watch, if that watch box is pretty close to us, I would suggest paying close attention to it, because these storms, these watches, they could change them, and they could go 1 or 2 counties either side of that line if storms happen. So always during the spring, be mindful of where these watch boxes are and how close they are to us. And we're having a lot of new folks moving into our area that's not used to dealing with tornadoes. And so I try and share with them, you know, the tornado season in Oklahoma, we just have a new person that is started work for the city, and he just retired out of the Air Force, and his last duty station was up in Alaska. And I met him this week, and he was asking me, he said, hey, he said, what is the tornado season, you know, for Oklahoma? And I said, well, I said, tornado season is January through December. And he kind of looks at me, and he's going like, what? I said, yeah. I said, well, you know, our most active is March through about June, but our season's January through December. And I said, in fact, we did a welcoming party for you last night, because we had 4 tornado warnings, you know, like the last night in Oklahoma. And he's going like, yeah. So he pulled it up on his phone. Sure enough. And so I said, you know, always, you know, that's our most active time, but tornadoes can happen any time of the year here. Outlook, when this time of the year, and really almost every day, I always look at the Storm Prediction Center, see what's going on around our area. They kind of give us an outlook of what may be coming to us. So we may, if we're lucky enough, we may have some days of a notice, potential severe weather coming in, and then a watch box pop up. One of the things that occurred to us, it was a couple years ago when we had the tornado warning for Broken Arrow that happened just on the other side of Signal Hill and went northeast. I had a lot of phone calls going like, how come there was no watch to give us an idea that this tornado was coming? I said, one of the things about tornadoes and with storms, don't rely upon a tornado watch to happen. That just proves to you a tornado can happen and there's no tornado watch. So if we have severe thunderstorms coming in, be mindful of those storms coming through, because it just depending upon the environment and what's going on. That one tornado that occurred over here in eastern Broken Arrow, how quick it happened was, I'm at home in my office, and I have kind of like a mini EOC set up in my office, and I have the screens and stuff going up. I have NWS Chat. NWS Chat is a secure link between the National Weather Service, the local media, the Storm Prediction Center, the Weather Prediction Center, NNSL, National Severe Storms Lab, and Emergency Management and First Responders, where we communicate in real time back and forth. I'm sitting there at the house, I have my city radio on where I'm listening to PD dispatch, And I'm watching these storms coming up, and Karen Hatfield, who was the lead meteorologist, forecaster on duty at the time, I'm sitting there at my desk and I'm watching this. And about that time, I hear this mooing sound pop up on my computer, and it's Karen saying, Broken Arrow, get ready, we're issuing a warning. And I'm like, where'd that come from? And about the time I'm getting the dog off my lap and putting my boots on and trying to get out the door, here comes the warning, and I get on the radio and I let dispatch know, hey, sound the sirens, and here it comes and here it goes. And as I'm driving in, sirens are still going off. I go check some areas, make sure the fire guys are going out, checking with them. Nobody's life was lost. There was no injuries, mostly roof damage and tree damage. And I walked back into the dispatch center to check on them, and the team stands up. They're going like, well, when you came on the radio and said sound the sirens, we thought you were off your meds. And I'm going like, no. I said, that's how fast a tornado can happen, and that's what was called a QLCS, a quasi-linear convective system. And they really didn't detect it on radar until after it had already started picking up debris. So that's how small and how quick these can happen. So always be ready for them. And again, going over, this is some of the things that we do to get ready for severe weather. We have our radar maps going on. We're activating our folks. We're kind of letting them know what's coming. I try and send out emails to our staff to let them know, hey, this is potentially what could happen. And with that, I get a lot of phone calls. The city of Broken Arrow, we only sound our sirens, do live testing March through about September, and a lot of times some of our residents will call and say, hey, we had the tornado warning, the sirens went off, our siren didn't go off, and it didn't wake us up. Well, it's like I tell them, those outdoor warning sirens, that should be your last line of notification that a tornado has happened. Because again, that's the reason the term outdoor warning sirens, and you need at least 3 ways of receiving warning notification, because and I'll get into this a little bit later, but those outdoor warning sirens are mechanical devices powered by batteries. Lightning could hit one of them. It could have a mechanical failure. One of the gears in there could freeze up for any known reason, and they don't turn, so you don't get the full effect of it. So those are mechanical devices that could fail. They're meant for folks who are outside who may be a further distance away to give them a heads up of what's coming on. So have 3 ways. Have NOAA weather radio, have the apps on your phones, local radio on TV station, and we kind of know what's going on with the weather as we're getting closer into spring. The city of Broken Arrow, we have 56 outdoor warning sirens spread out through the city. We do test them the first Wednesday of every month from March through September on the first Wednesday of the month. If for some reason the weather is not conducive for us to do those tests, being clouds or rain or something that just, if we were to sound the test and just somebody walk outside, they'd think it's bad weather, we won't test, we'll do it the next Wednesday. If we're not able to do it the next Wednesday, then we'll postpone it and we'll go to the next month. Even though we're not doing live tests during this time, we are doing silent tests. Those silent tests puts out a tone at a high pitch that we can't hear, but you may notice dogs in the neighborhoods at certain times, all the dogs may be barking or carrying on. And if you see one of the sirens, the horns that rotate, if you see it rotating but there's no sound coming out of it, there's a sound, the dogs can hear it, we can't. So
you do that at 2 in the morning, right?
No. No, because the only way those gets tested is if I'm the one up there testing it. And if I'm going to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's going to be some bad weather. I mean, yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. No, I wouldn't even do it. And we maintain those. We have our streets and stormwater has an electrical team. They do a great job in keeping them maintained. I tell them, I said, they're the heroes out there. They're the ones that really make sure that they work. I just test them and push the buttons and make sure that they work when we push the button. Again, this is a kind of a quick overview of the El Reno tornado back in 19. There's been a lot of questions and stuff about, tornadoes traveling a straight line and stuff, and I always try and tell folks, don't rely upon past history of tornadoes moving from the southwest to the northeast. They don't do that, and I use this as an example. Here, the El Reno tornado, look here, it started up here, went south, then back east, kind of turned, then kind of went north, and it's almost like it was trying to do a circle. And that was an EF3, and then El Reno had another one that was an EF5. But this one, the National Weather Service had some spotters out there that had some electronic devices from OU that they were measuring and doing this. And so this is a good example of, they don't stay in straight lines all the time. Don't rely upon that. These things could turn. And if you see how large this is, these blue marks are is the wall cloud. The red ones is the main funnel itself. But on the outside between these two blue markers, that whole wall cloud was turning. And it had just about as much wind speed in the wall cloud that it almost set right down on the ground as the center of the tornado of where the funnel was. So just because you have a funnel, depending upon the severity of the wind fields that's out there, that whole wall cloud, I've seen them sit down on the ground and be just as wide. That's where you get the varying distance from when they're talking about the widths. We go on talking about tornadoes in the safe rooms. We do have a registry within the city of Broken Arrow that if you have a safe room above ground, below ground, that you can go online, you can register your safe room. And I get a lot of questions. I always let people know that when you email that information in, I don't use that information, I don't sell it, I don't use it anywhere else. I get that information in, I put it on our spreadsheet. And as soon as that information gets on that spreadsheet, it goes over to our 911 center. They take and they geocode that, and they mark on your address within our 911 system that you have a safe room there. And what we do with this is, if we do have a tornado and it sits down, it's within the city limits, we'll print that out and we'll give it to our first responders, and as they're going through, they're going to clear those addresses that have safe rooms and make sure the safe rooms are empty. Because depending upon the type of safe room, you may get trapped in there from debris or whatever. So that's the reason we do this printout, and we give it to our first responders so they can go through there. And unfortunately, I give them a big yellow can of spray paint and I tell them put a big X on it. The way we know that it's empty, there's no one in there, we're good to go.
Is that a fee to register?
Nope. No fee. Like I said, you just you can go online, fill out a form that's online, and send it in. And there's only 3 people that get notified that we're putting this information in our database, and that's me, one of the majors on the police department, and I think our ladies who do the permitting and stuff down there. It kind of gives them an idea. They don't do anything with it. I'm the only one that does. Once I enter that information in the database, it goes over to the 911 center, and it's deleted.
Because the last 40 years, I've always had one of those in every house that I've ever owned, but I've never registered. So.
Well, a lot of folks they say that they don't want to register them because they don't want people to know. I'm good with that. You don't want someone to know. Does it mean we're not going to go through and check the homes? No, but it just if we have like a Moore or an El Reno tornado, and it's that large, and some of our city folks are involved in the disaster, I may be bringing teams out of Texas, I may be bringing teams out of Arkansas, and they may not know the area, and I'd rather give them a piece of paper with flags on them saying, hey, these addresses of what people said that they've had safe rooms, and they go through and they clear them. Because a lot of our
marker instead of streets, everything's level.
Yeah, well, it's just like our building and our code enforcement guys. They're my damage assessment team, and they're the ones that go out and do this. Well, we were just talking about it, so make sure you got cans of fluorescent pink, yellow, or whatever, because as they're going out and they're doing my damage assessment, they're going down on the streets and they're using those spray cans and they're naming the streets. Because in a large tornado, street signs are going to be gone, houses could be gone. You're not going to, someone new coming in, they're not going to know where they're at. And so having those, naming the streets and stuff as first responders coming in that may not be from this area, we'll have the street names and stuff on the street, so that way they know where they're at. And we'll have the 100 blocks.
Are they taking some penmanship classes from, some local taggers and stuff?
None of them are doctors, so at least we should be able to read them. That's the good thing. And how am I doing on time? Okay. Here are some of the photographs that was taken over at the Moore tornado. And one of them that I always talk about, when I say, about the registration on the safe rooms, on this one right here, this one, the door opens up, and look at all the debris around it. This one was on their list to go by and check. The first team that went through there, they missed that. When they were doing the second go through, they had the list, and they come through and they found a couple of folks that were in here, but they had to dig all the debris off the top of it. That's the reason I always say, if you're going to do a safe room, try and get one, the door opens to the inside, not going outside. So if something falls, at least you can work on getting the debris out. You're not trapped in there.
Do you have any problem with ones being in the garage slab or flooding or?
That has come up, but that's a reason we do permits for safe rooms that go on the ground, because our inspectors will go out and they'll inspect the work, and the first thing they're going to do, they're going to look and see if it's in the flood zone. And if it's in the flood zone, they're going to be denied. And that's well, you probably need to get one that's above ground. But if the one above ground is going to be in the flood zone, they'll start saying, well, you're going to have to move it to the other side of the house where it's not in the flood zone. So yeah, but if you put one in and you don't have to have the contractor you use, if you tell them to put it right here, they're just going to put it right there.
Good, brings up a good point. Since we had to have a permit to install that above ground one in the garage, do y'all automatically register that?
No. That's about the registration part of it, is even though you get a permit, usually I'll get copies of the permits and I'll see them, okay, fine, but I still trash them. The thing about it is, it's a volunteer process of registering your safe rooms, because there's some folks that don't want their safe rooms registered for us to know that they're there, and so I don't put it on there unless I'm told or asked, would you put my house on there? So, I mean, that's security, I guess. If you don't want it, I'm not going to force you. Here are some other photos from the Moore tornado. And the reason I have these in here is this one right here, the small bathroom and the staircase. When I give a lot of my talks, we talk about, where to have your safe rooms, and we tell them, put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Get underneath the staircase, because if the more walls you have around you on the outside, you get into these small rooms. These usually have been the rooms that stay more secure, and people have survived in those, and getting underneath the staircases. So these pictures were taken from the National Severe Storms Lab, going out taking photos and sharing with us to prove to the point that we're not crazy. Put as many walls between you and the outside if you don't have a safe room. So that's about all I have.